All right, guys, let's dig into our first question, which has to do with abductions. I'm traveling overseas for work in a relatively unstable part of the world where abduction and ransom cases are not uncommon. What is your advice to someone who is abducted by people with violent intentions? Do you have any personal experiences with that? So, of course, training-wise and statistics and the data that's out there, seeing these scenarios unfold, those are the experiences I have. Obviously, if nobody's tried to abduct me, wouldn't have ended well for them, and I survived that. But for you guys, I want the one word that we focus on right away is the abduction piece. And if I say one thing to you guys and the video cuts out, it's that fighting for your life is everything in that moment, regardless of the scenario. And I'm going to explain why. Statistically, and you guys can look this up, you guys can research it all you want, but when that initial interaction happens, so that initial abduction or scenario, whatever it may be, occurs, there's typically a 97% survival rate if the person fights and does something to mitigate or get away or whatever the case is. We can talk about tactics in a second. If they get taken to a secondary location, that percentage plummets. I mean, very significantly. I can sit here and say it's 20%, 30%, but it drops. We know that for a fact. Why? Well, the environment that they were looking at you for a target or try to abduct you, wherever this situation occurs, it's always a variable. It's always an unknown, even for the threat, even for the person that's abducting the person, is that they don't necessarily know what's going on. Why did this car pull up this way? I was expecting it to be this way. Why did the door open this way? I didn't expect the person to react. How you act in those environments is the largest variable that they have to deal with. So use that to your advantage. The secondary location, if you think about that, if they were planning this out, if it was a true abduction for looking for a target or easy prey, well, then they take you to a place where they already planned, they already have pre-established, they already had reps in, they had a lot of thought into this secondary location. That secondary location could even be in the vehicle that they're in. They know once they get you in there, they're going to take you to another spot, which they've already visualized what to do over and over and over again. Flip the table to your advantage and respond with action in the environment that's most unknown to them. That's your time to act. That's your time to take action. That's your time to fight for your life. If there's a 97% survival rate in that moment, I'm going to tell you to do everything that you possibly can to mitigate. And that's overseas. That's anywhere. You know, these things happen in Florida often, even next to the border. These things are happening all over the world. It's not just overseas. I know we like to think about that, you know, that Taken scenario, that Europe scenario, but it's not uncommon anywhere. And I want you guys to realize that getting the right training, knowing how to respond, fighting for your life right then and there is the most effective thing that you can do. Do not let yourself get taken to a secondary location. Again, you guys hear me talk about this, but when I have children, it tends to change the game, doesn't it? And that's just about everything. I could draw a visual right now to say, if I turned around and I saw one of my kids get pulled into a van right away and they got swept off, right? Forget about what I'm going to do in that case. But if I all of a sudden go to get in my car and then a guy's holding a gun to my head saying, let's go, you're coming with me too, and it's part of the same crew, that's probably one of the only scenarios that I can at least think of off the top of my head that I'm like, okay, take me to wherever you just took my child, because I'm willing to risk that secondary location. Aside from that, I really can't come up with another scenario right here and now that's going to be okay for me to go to that secondary location. So just keep that in mind, that I'm encouraging you guys. That's why we train, why we fight, why we visualize these things ahead of time so that we can take advantage of the variable, manipulate it, turn the table to your advantage, and fight for your life. It's a great question. I'm sure there's other variables that are come up like that, but that's my advice to you right here and now. At least apply that. Great question.